Most people think mental toughness is something you're born with, that some people just have it, and the rest of us are left hoping we'll find it when things get hard. The Stoics would call that the most dangerous lie you'll ever believe. Mental toughness isn't a personality trait. It isn't a gift. It is a practice, a daily, unglamorous, nobody's watching practice. And the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, built a complete system for it over 2,000 years ago. A system so effective. Before we talk about how to build it, we need to kill a myth. Mental toughness is not the absence of pain. It is not being numb. It is not gritting your teeth and pretending everything is fine. That's not strength. That's suppression. And suppression always has a bill. The Stoics defined mental toughness differently. They called it apatheia. Not apathy in the modern sense, but freedom from being controlled by your emotions. The ability to feel something fully. Fear, grief, frustration, anger, and still choose your response. Marcus Aurelius lost children. He buried friends. He fought a plague that killed 5 million people across his empire. He didn't pretend those things didn't hurt. He wrote about his grief privately, honestly, and without performance. But when he showed up in public, he showed up, fully, deliberately. Because he had trained himself to separate what he felt from what he chose to do next. That's the first lesson. Mental toughness is not about feeling less. It's about choosing more deliberately. Write that down. Feeling less is numbness. Choosing deliberately is strength. They are not the same thing. Epictetus was born a slave. He had no citizenship, no rights, no freedom of movement. His master once broke his leg, deliberately, just to see if he would react. Epictetus didn't flinch. He said calmly, "I told you it would break." Now you might hear that story and think it's extreme, superhuman even. But here's what Epictetus would tell you. It wasn't extreme at all. It was the natural result of one simple practice he had drilled into himself every single day. The dichotomy of control. Everything in life falls into one of two categories. Things within your control, your thoughts, your effort, your attitude, your choices. And things outside your control, other people's opinions, the economy, the weather, your past, what happens to you. Most of us spend the majority of our mental energy on the second category. We worry about what people think of us. We replay conversations we can't change. We stress about outcomes we can't guarantee. And every ounce of energy spent there is energy stolen from the only place where you can actually make a difference. Your own choices, right now, today. Mental toughness is built by ruthlessly redirecting your attention. Every time your mind drifts toward the uncontrollable, you catch it. You name it, "That's not mine." And you bring your focus back to what you can actually do. This sounds simple. It is not easy. It is a practice that requires repetition, awareness, and patience. But the people who master it, they become unshakable. Not because nothing goes wrong, because they stop wasting themselves on what they cannot change. Here's a question to sit with. Where are you leaking energy right now? What are you worried about that is genuinely outside your control? Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He had every comfort available to a person in the ancient world. Fine food, a beautiful home, influence, power, and once a month, he deliberately gave it all up. He would wear rough clothes instead of fine ones. Eat the simplest food available. Sleep without his usual comforts. Not because he had to. Because he wanted to answer one question with certainty. If I lost everything, could I survive it? He called this practice voluntary hardship. And it is one of the most counterintuitive and powerful tools in the Stoic arsenal. Here's why it works. Most of our fear is not fear of the actual hard thing. It's fear of the unknown. We've never been cold, so we're terrified of cold. We've never been broke, so financial loss feels catastrophic. We've never been rejected publicly, so we avoid any situation where it could happen. Voluntary hardship closes that gap. When you deliberately expose yourself to discomfort, when you choose difficulty before difficulty chooses you, you discover something that changes everything. You can handle far more than you thought. The cold shower you avoid every morning? That's not about cold. That's about training your brain to stop running from discomfort. The fast you keep putting off, not about food, about proving to yourself that your cravings don't run you. The hard conversation you keep postponing, not about the other person, about building the muscle of courage before you need it in a high-stakes moment. Mental toughness is built in the small discomforts we choose, every day, when we don't have to. Marcus Aurelius put it this way: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Don't avoid the hard thing. Walk toward it. That's where your strength is waiting. Marcus Aurelius woke up every morning and had a conversation with himself. Not a pep talk, not an affirmation, a reality check. He would remind himself, today will be hard. I will encounter people who are selfish, ungrateful, dishonest, and difficult. I will face situations that frustrate me. Things will not go as planned. And then, this is the critical part. He would remind himself why none of that would move him. Because he had decided before the day began who he was going to be inside of it. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Not pessimism, preparation. There is a profound difference. Pessimism says, things will go wrong, and there's nothing I can do about it. Preparation says, things will go wrong, and I have already decided how I will respond. When you walk into your day without this practice, you are reactive. Life happens to you. Every surprise, every setback, every difficult person has the power to knock you off balance because you never decided, in advance, where your feet were planted. When you walk in with it, you are proactive, not rigid. You can still be flexible, spontaneous, warm, but your foundation doesn't shift just because the weather does. Try this tomorrow morning. Before you pick up your phone, before coffee, sit for 2 minutes and ask yourself, what is the hardest thing I might face today? And who do I choose to be when it happens? That 2-minute practice, done consistently, will change the way you move through the world. Here's something the Stoics understood that modern psychology has only recently caught up to. The event is never the problem. The story you tell yourself about the event is the problem. Epictetus said it plainly. Men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by the opinions about the things. 2 people can lose a job on the same day. One spirals into shame, defeat, paralysis. The other treats it as an invitation to rebuild something better. Same event, completely different inner narrative, and completely different outcomes. Mental toughness is, in large part, narrative control. It is the daily practice of examining the stories you're telling yourself and asking, is this story serving me or destroying me? This doesn't mean lying to yourself. Toxic positivity, pretending everything is fine when it isn't, is just as dangerous as catastrophizing. The Stoic path is neither. It's honest, clear-eyed realism paired with deliberate interpretation. Something went wrong. That's real. Now, what does this make possible? What is this teaching me? What is the strongest, most useful story I can tell about this moment? That question, what is the most useful story I can tell right now, is a weapon. Use it. Marcus Aurelius lost a child and wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." He wasn't dismissing the grief. He was refusing to let the grief write the final word. He chose the narrative. Even in the darkest moment, he chose it. You have that same power over every story in your life. Start exercising it. There's a word the Stoics used that doesn't translate perfectly into English. Equanimity. It means, roughly, a steady, calm mind in the face of both good fortune and bad. Not excitement when things are great. Not despair when things fall apart. A grounded, level quality of presence that doesn't spike or crash based on circumstances. This is the end state that all the other practices are building toward. The cold showers, the morning discipline, the narrative control, all of it is training for equanimity. And here's why this matters more than almost anything else in your life. The people around you will always be able to tell who has it and who doesn't. A person with equanimity in a crisis becomes the calm in the storm. They become the person others look to. They become the leader, not because they have all the answers, but because they haven't lost themselves. Equanimity is earned. It is not given. It is built through 10,000 small moments of choosing calm over chaos, response over reaction, presence over panic. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay, not suppression. Delay. That one breath, that one pause before you respond. That is equanimity in action. Build the pause. Protect the pause. The pause is everything." Mental toughness is not about being hard. It's about being rooted. It's about knowing, deeply in your bones, that whatever comes, you have the tools to meet it. Not perfectly, not without pain, but with clarity, with intention, and with the kind of strength that doesn't flinch. The Stoics didn't build this philosophy for philosophers sitting in comfortable rooms. They built it for people living real lives, leading nations, surviving slavery, facing death, raising families, running businesses, people just like you. You have access to the same wisdom. You have access to the same practice. The only question is whether you'll use it. Start tomorrow morning. 2 minutes. One question. Who am I choosing to be today? That's where it begins. If this video gave you something real, subscribe. We go deep on Stoic wisdom every week for people who are building something that lasts. Like this if you're committing to the practice. And drop a comment. Which of these 6 principles hit you the hardest? I read every single one.